Hey there, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. My name's Tristan. I have an overview of the Lamy Safari Mango, the 2020 Special Edition. This right here is the fountain pen version, and today I'll not only be looking at the fun fountain pen version, which I'm sure is probably majority of the people who want Safari's preferred version, but I'll also be looking at the rollerball version and also the ballpoint version. Probably the least favorite of everyone's, but I think it's actually kind of a unique contribution to the Safari lineup, and it has its own benefits. So first we'll be looking at the fountain pen. It's kind of a matte finish in a mango color. It's probably my favorite color in general, and as you can see, I have the fountain pen attached upside down while I was reattaching it. I'll be fixing that later, but you'll see some experimentation on how to line up the logo correctly. But overall, I don't think there's too much that hasn't been said about Lamy Safaris, because it is probably the most famous fountain pen that is in existence. Overall, the color is matched throughout the whole system. The threads are also mango colored, and inside you can see mango colored spikes, which I believe are there to push on the converter once you screw in the attachment, as well as just hold everything in place in general due to the length of the body. And right now you'll see that I'm attempting to line up all the different ways that you could line up the Lamy logo with the end of the nib. And having it to the left doesn't give it the right orientation. Having it facing to the right is how you do it. So if you have the Lamy logo to the right of the top of the nib, that's how you'll screw it in correctly. My only issues with my fountain pen is, for some reason, the cap or maybe the ring are slightly mismatched, so there's kind of 3 points of contact instead of 2. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just kind of something I noticed when I got it. Next up, we have the rollerball version. Overall, the body shape is very similar to the fountain pen, but obviously there's some minor differences, such as the ink window, and the top finial portion also has a single hash on the rollerball versus 2 hashes on the fountain pen version. But otherwise, the grip section is the same, logo is the same. Orientation doesn't matter because there's no top or bottom to a rollerball. So there's always that kind of advantage when you're screwing things back together. I don't have any issues with capping on the rollerball one, and I have other Lamy Safaris that haven't had any capping issues either. I'm not sure what's up with the fountain pen. Next up, we have the ballpoint version. And this one's kind of a unique design compared to the fountain pen and the rollerball. I've never considered getting a ballpoint or a nicer quality ballpoint pen, and this one's it's fun because it has similar design aspects to the other two, and the colored clip is just kind of a huge draw for me for some reason. Here, on the rubber end point of the ballpoint pen, you can see that it kind of closes down in a certain way, and it's not really a big thing, but I kind of wish it went down in a uniform way, but it's not a huge deal. And looking at the refill on the inside, it's kind of a unique refill for ballpoint pens, and though the mechanism is down closer to the tip, it's pretty similar to most ballpoint pens. The other interesting thing is you could see on the inside there, it has a copper spring, or at least what appears to be a copper spring, compared to like a normal stainless steel spring. Just kind of something I noticed, and it's kind of fun. And now, since I didn't look at it earlier, I thought I'd pull out the rollerball version. It's, this one's more of a standard rollerball looking refill. And you can see that the end tip there is kind of a little smushed because it also has similar contact points at the bottom of the pen like the fountain pen did, but it's a little bit harder to get lighting inside there to see the little spikes that it hits against. And here you can see me struggling to screw it all down, afraid that I'm squeezing too tight. I ended up screwing it down a bit more later, but it's not too big of a deal. And next we'll be having a look at the packaging that these pens come in. Obviously, Lamy's pretty famous for their paper boxes. Overall, I mean, they're fine. They provide protection of the pens while shipping, and you don't feel too bad about throwing them out or just throwing them in the closet after you're done with them. The interesting thing that I noticed that I never really paid attention to before was that these were the paper company is Gmund, which is probably a butchering of the pronunciation because it's a German paper company and they produce the Lamy boxes, and I just thought that was kind of cool. But overall, all the packages are the same. Nothing too special. And now I'll be doing some size comparisons between the three pens and a couple other pens that you may have in your collection. Overall, you can see sizes are pretty comparable. And now in comparison to the famous Lamy Safari. Obviously, this is a joke. And a Pilot Metropolitan. Another very popular, relatively cheaper fountain pen. And I think it's comparable in size. Another common household item, a Sharpie. You can see, overall, they're not significantly larger or smaller than either the Sharpie or a standard ballpoint pen. So you don't have to worry about things being too large or too small. And then against a little quick drying ballpoint pen for left-handed people like me. Next up, we'll be looking at a writing sample of each of the pens. First, I'll start with the fountain pen. And to start off with, I'll be using just plain printer paper, because majority of the time when I'm taking notes or when I'm doing a to-do list, I just end up using printer paper instead of my Rhodia nicer paper. And I think it's a good comparison to look at how pens write in a normal everyday situation. And I think another fun interpretation of this is I'm kind of writing down what would be kind of notes for some topic versus the standard pangram. Obviously, the pangram has a advantage to showing each letter and this is what an upstroke would do on this pen, and this is what a downstroke would do. And most of the time I think that's completely justifiable, but also it's just kind of fun to see how it would write if I'm actually doing, homework or studying or writing out secret love letters to someone. So, to start with the fountain pen, it's a very light fountain pen, and overall, I think it's a pretty nice writing experience compared to a lot of the other fountain pens that I own. And, that's not to say that having a light fountain pen or a heavy fountain pen is either good or bad. It's just really up to preference. And, I think part of the why I own so many fountain pens is greatly due to having variation in my writing, my writing experience, per se. And then next you can see the rollerball perform fantastic. I think rollerballs are certainly, my favorite thing next to fountain pens, because essentially, they write like a fountain pen with very smooth, little pressure, but you also have the reliability of having a ball instead of the possibility of lots of skipping or hard starting or issues with baby bottom. But that being said, everyone says ballpoint pens are the most reliable of everything, and as you can see in the first writing sample here, I had a hard start with my ballpoint pen. And frankly, every time that I have used it so far, I have had it be dry at the beginning, and it's just kind of frustrating and also kind of funny due to how everyone always says oh, don't use a fountain pen because my ballpoint pen will work every single time. And it's well, clearly not, but it's not a big deal. That's just kind of life. And obviously you can see in this writing example right here on Rhodia dot pad, high quality paper, pretty similar lines compared to the printer paper. Overall, there's not a lot of bleeding issues with the fountain pen, but you can see that I made a little issue with the eye and liver, and that's entirely due to the fact that I sometimes lose contact with the paper with this pen because it's just so light, and also the writing angle that I was writing this at didn't really help that. But I mean, overall, I haven't had any issues with this fountain pen, which is very happy to say, because historically I've had issues with Lamy Safaris, and so have other members of my family. You know, I've convinced them to get into fountain pens, and then of course the fountain pen that they get doesn't really work exactly, and it's like, obviously that's quite frustrating, but I'm very happy with this one. So it's good to see that there are ones that do come that don't have any issues. And then here again you can see kind of some comparisons between the lines and colors between the fountain pen, the rollerball, and the ballpoint pen. And if it wasn't apparent by how thin the lines are with the fountain pen, this is a Lamy Fine, which historically Lamy has been known for having a thicker line with their fines and mediums compared to the other pen companies, but I found that this one's actually quite fine and I enjoy it quite a bit. So overall, I think all of these pens have something great to offer. Each one has their own advantages and disadvantages over the others, and I think each of them can be a fun addition to everyone's collection, or even just as a person who's never bought a fountain pen before would be a great start. Prices for all of these are pretty straightforward. The fountain pen being around $30, the rollerball being around $20, and the ballpoint pen being around $16. The other colors include aquamarine and violet, which I think are great colors in their own respect, though obviously mango is my favorite color. But I think overall, it's a fun limited edition, and hopefully they'll be available for a decent amount of time so that plenty of people can get the pens that they want. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you later.